Good morning, everyone. I'm Quang. Today I want to talk about a question that sounds simple at first, yet becomes more meaningful the more you think about it. Is happiness a choice? Before we begin, here's a quick overview of today's talk. First, we'll explore the question, is happiness a choice? Then, a short story that sets the stage for this idea. After that, we'll look at why happiness is difficult. Our mindset shapes our reaction, and finally, why happiness can also be practiced as a skill. So let's begin. Is happiness a choice? Well, it's a question that appears everywhere, in books, in quotes, in the voices of people who seem endlessly optimistic. And yet, the moment no pressure arrives, the simplicity of that question begins to collapse. And that's why it matters, as I believe everyone of us has lived through moments when happiness feels less like a choice and more like a challenge to understand. And I believe all of us have had days when we wake up and feel unusually heavy inside. Nothing terrible happens, but something still feels off, like a quiet cloud hanging in the background. I've felt that too. Moments when schoolwork piles up, when expectations feel too high, or when not sure what exactly is wrong. But just don't feel okay. And those moments made me wonder, if happiness is truly a choice, then why is it so hard to choose it? And more importantly, if happiness depends only on choosing to be happy, then why doesn't simply thinking positively solve everything? And this was the question that led me to explore how happiness really works. The truth is, life is complicated, more than most people admit. Deadlines, pressures, expectations, doubts, they do not take turns. They collide. Boom. There's a common belief that happiness appears once life gets easier, calmer, or more organized. But life doesn't work that way. It keeps shifting, challenging, and surprising us. Because if happiness depends on perfection, it becomes almost unreachable. And perhaps that's why happiness is better understood not as a price of a perfect life, but as a mindset that carries us through an imperfect life. So again, is happiness a choice? Well, in some ways, the answer is no. We cannot control everything that happens to us. We can't control sudden changes, failures, stress, or the behavior of other people. We simply do not get to choose the story. But in another sense, the answer is also yes. We can choose how we respond to those situations. We can choose what we focus on, how we interpret things, and how we talk to ourselves during difficult moments. And sometimes these small choices make a bigger difference than we often expect. They do not erase all the problems, but they shape how we experience it. So now, think about two people facing the same situation. Failing a test, for example. One person might feel hopeless and give up, while the other notices the failure, but chooses to learn from it and try again. The situation here is exactly the same, but their experience of it is completely different. So here's a question for you guys. When something in your life goes wrong, what is the first reaction that appears in your mind? Is it something that you consciously choose, or is it something that shows up in your mind before you even think? So does anyone have an answer? Oh, you please.
My first reaction is usually stress or worry. It shows up before I even think.
Thank you. Because if our first reaction isn't a choice, but our second reaction can be, then happiness becomes this strange mix of instinct and intention. Not fully chosen and not fully automatic. You can sit down. Psychologists suggest that a large part of our happiness comes from our habits and the way we think, not from luck or perfect circumstances. That means happiness isn't something that simply arrives. It's something we practice. We shape it through small choices, noticing what's good, taking care of our mind and body, quieting comparison, and being patient with ourselves. And of course, these habits do not transform us overnight, of course, but slowly they strengthen the way we respond to life. And that's when we realize happiness isn't only an emotion you feel, it's a skill we learn. So in the end, is happiness a choice? Well, not entirely, but far more than we often realize. We cannot choose everything that happens to us, but we can choose the lens through which we see it and the attitude we carry through difficulty. And choosing happiness doesn't mean pretending life is perfect. It's choosing to understand ourselves. And before I begin, before I leave, I want to ask you one last question. When life becomes difficult, what will you choose? And you can answer it at any time you want to. Thank you so much for listening.